state representative, I'm very much standing on the Constitution. I appreciate the laws of nature. I respect the laws of nature, natural rights of man, and of course morality. And I believe in the founding fathers and the original intent of American history, right? The original intent of the founding fathers we call originalism. So, with that being said, a year ago I founded this organization so that way we could begin to inspire and educate young men and women, as well as the older crowd, about cultural issues that are going on, right? And across the board, we've already had several events that have gone on, talking sexuality, right, as it relates to the family structure, and then tonight we're talking about the LGBT issue and as it relates to family. But we've also gone into the issue of climate change, and Second Amendment, and freedom of speech. So we talk about all these issues. We go to college campuses and high schools to talk with young people about that. And one thing we make sure of too is that wherever we are at, we have a civil and respectful discussion with people. We want to include everybody into the discussion, but we do have our baseline. We do have a set of beliefs as an organization that we believe in, and that's on our website as well. You can kind of look at that. It's a little bit long. I won't go through it all right now. But that being said, I want to start the event off this way. Number one, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So it's going to be a pretty lengthy Q&A, and it's going to provide a place where each and every one of you, whether you're for or against the issue, right, you can ask questions. And we want any and every question to be asked, because this is a time for us all to engage in a respectful and civil discussion. So that's the first thing. And we appreciate that ahead of time, by the way, because that's what we're about, having that discussion. And so with that being said, we're excited about tonight, and we're looking forward to having that conversation, right? And we want everybody to leave here with some information. Whether you agree or disagree at the end, you at least leave with some information. You know what the Patriot initiative is about. And one thing that we also want to see happen is young men and women who are being inspired and empowered to run for public office and get involved in public leadership, who are going to stand for the Constitution and stand for what our founding fathers had intended our nation to look like by now. So, with that being said, I am going to introduce Hal Shurtleff, who is founder of Camp Constitution. Great gentleman. We've known each other for a number of years now. And I think we're going to do about 20 minutes-ish for each of us. And then, again, we have it until 8:30, so we're going to yield plenty of time for everybody to ask questions as you wish. Hal?
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate Josh inviting me. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, born and raised. My third cousin is Stephen Shurtleff, who was the Democrat Speaker of the House. And I met him once. He's a very likable person. Everyone I know him that knows him says that. They may not agree with his views. My dad was born in Peterborough, New Hampshire, so I have deep New Hampshire roots here. And I'm the director and co-founder of Camp Constitution. And I'm a father of 5, husband of 1, father of 5, and I just became a grandfather just a few months ago. And I'm very concerned about the future of our country. I think like most people are, left, right, or center. There's lots of issues that are problems. And one of the things that, one of the reasons why I like this group so much is because he's talking about influencing young people to get involved in the political process. And that's, and he was remarkable. He served 2 terms. He's a veteran of a state house after serving 2 terms. So he has experience in being elected. I had an interesting thing that happened to me a few years ago. 2017. There was a prayer meeting at the mayor of Boston's office. He was not sponsoring it. He was nowhere to be found. It was started by an inner city minister who invited me to participate. And we went in, and we weren't talking politics. We as Christians prayed for the city, prayed for its leaders, regardless of what we agree with them or not. And it was great. There were blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians. That's what the Christian church is supposed to look like. And I decided that I thought we should fly the Christian flag on City Hall Plaza. Now, City Hall has a, what I call a public access flagpole that on their website, before our lawsuit, it said open to all groups. You just have to fill out this little permit to make sure that things go smoothly, and there's, like a traffic cop on the flagpole. And 5 years ago, we flew the Gadsden flag without any incident. That's the flag with the rattlesnake, don't tread on me. But the Christian flag, we called it the Christian flag, and all it is a white flag with a blue canton and a red cross. And we were going to, the purpose of the flag raising was to celebrate the Constitution, September 17th. And also to, also the founding of the city of Boston just happened to be on that same date. But also to address the need for Christians to be involved in racial reconciliation. We know that there are forces in this country that are pitting black and white against each other, and we need to be more of a voice for that. We were also going to have a historian talk about America's great, he was a man from the Sudan who had been tortured as a young man. He's a U.S. citizen now, and he was going to discuss the blessings of liberty. And then we were going to have a historian talk about Boston's Christian history from 1630, unmistakable Christian history. And the flag would have been up there maybe a day or two at the most. And most people who walked by that would not have even noticed that, no idea what it was. Well, the permit was denied based on the First Amendment, separation of church and state. And initially, then it became city speech, approved government speech. That was the second thing. So I did a news release, and to make a long story short, the news release initially, not one media outlet in the city could care less. I was suggested that I get a hold of Liberty Council, which is a Christian-based entity that deals pro bono for Christians and conservative types. And they took the case immediately, and a lawsuit was eventually filed, and it made media all over the country, actually all over the world. And I started getting some nasty death threats. And there was a couple of leftist organizations, gay and lesbian national organizations, that they weren't threatening, but other people reading these things. So I was getting some really vile hate mail. I said, why is this so threatening? We want to raise the flag. We're part of this community too, just like everybody else. You raise your rainbow flag, that's fine. You raise your transgender flag, you raise your flag of whatever country you might be from. But there's Christians, we're part of this country as well. And we've been marginalized and almost treated like third-class citizens. Then I noticed in Colorado there was a baker, a small bakery, and he simply said, look, I have my religious convictions. He said, I'll bake you a cake. I'm not going to put any figures on it. And for that, the state went after him. He had death threats. Yeah. People try to drag him out of business. And these things are happening all over the country. My question is, why? I mean, it's to tolerate is one thing, but to destroy someone's business because you disagree and use the heavy hand of the government at all different levels, I got an issue with that. That's a serious issue with that. And we see the same thing happening in schools all over the country. Common Core, part of the Common Core sexual standards. Even people on the left say these are ridiculous. Young children at that age are too immature to handle this information, but it's still going on. And parents are being threatened with arrest. It happened in Lexington about 10 years ago, and it's happening all over the country. So that's my concern. And that's why, I got involved with this event. We're optimistic that we will win the lawsuit, but the city said, they talked to use the term approved government speech. So they fly a rainbow flag, they fly the transgender flag. When they say they, private organizations, but city officials show up and participate, they fly the flag of Communist China. They approve of what happened in fact, the city passed a resolution praising Mao Zedong's revolution that killed anywhere between, 40 million to 100 million people, and it's still pretty oppressive. And I don't think they're very sympathetic to the gay and lesbian community either. Last time I checked, okay? So that's why he invited me here, and I said, yeah, I'd like to be here and offer my input for what it's worth. So with that, I think I just pass it back to you, Josh.
Thank you, Hal. Appreciate it. If you have anything else to add, because we still have some time here, you're more than welcome to. So I'm going to get down in here and talk about some really fundamental things and kind of touch up a little bit on what Hal said. I want to start off by saying this event is not to beat up on the opposite side or anything of the sort. And I also want to say this. I absolutely believe in gay marriage. I 110% support gay marriage. Because gay, the term gay means happy, jovial, joyful. Who doesn't support a happy, jovial, joyful marriage? Right? So that's the first thing. Then you get into the topic of same-sex marriage, right? Which is flooding the streets, right? It's going national. So there's two things about this, and this should be understood by a lot of people, and it's not, because I served in the State House and I had a lot of discussions about this, and I tried to get people to understand the separation of these discussions. The first thing is number one. Marriage is the consummation, right? It's when a man and a woman come together. That's actual marriage. Then there's the ceremony of marriage. That's the certificate that you get from the government, right? That certificate of marriage is really what's been up for debate on the front lines of the legal battle for a long time. For years now, it's been the front lines of the legal battle. So the conversation has to be separated. Because what I like to ask people is, are you in support of civil unions, or are you in support of same-sex marriage? Because they're two real different things. And one thing I am a supporter of is getting government out of marriage entirely, right? So I'm going to go back a little bit into history here, and I'm going to provide some fundamental understanding. Hopefully this makes sense to folks. How many of you have ever heard of John Locke? Okay, great. Wow, half the room. That's wonderful. Some of you probably like, yeah, I've heard you say it before, Josh. So John Locke was a really exceptional guy. He was an Englishman who lived overseas, right? And he is very well known for abolishing, or dismantling, if you will, the divine right of kings theory. Okay, now I'm not going to go into that, but I'm kind of laying out a foundation of who he was. And he wrote two books, were the treatises on government. And John Locke, in the first treatise, was talking about the divine right of kings, family. He talked about family and the foundation of family, the individual and whatnot, right? He goes through that. Then, in his second treatise, which was very, very important, and this is really a sticking point for what we're talking about tonight, John Locke believed in life, liberty, and the ownership of property. He also believed in the freedom to self-worship, right? Well, self-consciousness, so you can believe what you want to believe, and worship as well. So those are two things very, very important to understand about John Locke. And here's the deal. These are foundational points. So John Locke believed that you are, as a man and a woman, right, are born into a state of nature. That state of nature is free. Men come together only for one benefit, and that is a social benefit, to protect their liberties, to protect life, liberty, and the ownership of property. That is the whole point of government in the first place. Anything that opposes those points, anything that comes against the foundational life, liberty, the ownership of property, self-preservation, right, self-defense, is an affront to liberty and an affront to man. So when we're talking about the issue of marriage, right, and restoring a family, and that's one thing I really want to touch up on big time tonight, is the restoring family aspect. Because that's not what we see across the board in our nation. I think all of us, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you see this across the board. There's a lot of angst, a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, people yelling back and forth, right? And what we're not stopping to look at is saying, okay, what are natural rights? And what are we doing to preserve liberty? And morality. Now everybody has, well, I should say everybody, there's a lot of people today that have a very different definition of morality. Well, whose morality are you enforcing? Whose morality do you believe in? Right? That's another sticking point for a lot of people. But it's very important to understand that without a higher power, there is no such thing as morality whatsoever at all. Okay? That's the first point.